Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We have a really nice looking crowd in the room. The town of Hinton respectfully acknowledges that it is located on the First Peoples traditional lands. We recognize this traditional territory to show respect and understanding to those who walked this land since time immemorial. Today, we uphold our ongoing responsibility to work together in the spirit of the intent of the treaties with all the First Peoples and nations that call this place home. The town expresses gratitude for the opportunity to build a better community on these sacred lands for generations to come. And with that, I would like to call this meeting to order. Council, any deletions, any changes to the agenda? Administration, any changes?
No changes.
Okay, and with that, I would like the motion from council to adopt the agenda. Councillor McGowan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move that we adopt the agenda for the committee of the whole meeting for August the 26th, 2025 as presented.
And we have the motion before us, the committee adopt the agenda as presented. You can vote no. And that is unanimous. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to community announcements. Do we have any community announcements?
There are none.
No one? And you guys, I have to tell you, I haven't chaired for a couple of years now, so if I miss a step, feel free to bring it up. I will not take exception to that. The next thing is delegations, and we have two delegations for tonight. The first one is the Hinton Food Bank, and Katie will be presenting. And we'll put some ground rules, you'll have 10 minutes to present your delegation. And I would like to give her the opportunity to do her presentation, and then we'll open the floor for questions. Okay? So, thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and town council members for hearing this presentation. Thank you so much for your altruistic support of us over the past year. And thank you to all the supporters that I see who attended today as well. We appreciate that. It's been about a year since we all last met in this room. The Jasper fire had recently happened and we were all in recovery mode. At the Hinton Food Bank, we had then extended our hours to better serve evacuees from Jasper. And every Tuesday we served folks who had lost their homes. Some of whom were refugees from Ukraine, and we were all dealing with a very heavy load. Today, we'd just like to give an overview of our agency, the impact of the Civic Agency Partnership, and that generous $15,000 contribution. I hope I don't go over too much that we covered last year, but I just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss any important details. We are stewards in the collection and purchase of food for distribution to folks in need in our Hinton community. And we do this in a lot of different ways. We do reclamation, we do food rescue, we receive very generous donations through food drives, we receive cash donations from local businesses, and we use our buying power and deals with local stores to make those dollars go as far as possible. At our agency, we depend on volunteer effort, and it takes about 120 hours a week just to operate. We also have a part-time staff, and they contribute around 56 paid hours weekly. Our vision is really just to have no more need in our community for the Hinton Food Bank or any services like ours. We were born from a need. There were individuals and there were families who were living with food insecurity in 1986, and unfortunately there still are. We do invest some of our time into advocating for policy change that would help to alleviate poverty for folks that we serve. And we'd like to see the need for our service and services like ours to disappear, but until they do, we will be here to serve our community. We've been in operation now for almost 40 years, and during that time, we've provided food assistance to really anyone who's in need. Food insecurity can happen to anyone. Many of us are just a missed paycheck or two away from needing just a little help just to get through. We often serve folks who are looking for work or looking for better. Some of these are even volunteers. It's really a wonderful part, if not the best part of my job, when I can give an excellent reference to somebody who's been volunteering for us, and then they get that job and then they no longer need our services. We also help many single parents and seniors and folks with disabilities. Sometimes we're just a stopgap, and other times we're gonna be needed to bridge a gap for folks on age or other welfare, because it's really just not enough to get through the month. We're community helping community. I'm sure many of you have heard our motto. And when I look at all of these photos and the presentation and also some of the folks here in this room, I hope you can really understand just how important our motto is for our agency. Part of what we do is we distribute fresh food vouchers to those in need. We do that 6 times a year. They can be used for milk or produce at local grocery stores. And we have local sponsors then that cover those costs. We also receive about $75,000 in donations from local businesses annually, and we receive even more from generous community members. We're often sponsored by children with lemonade stands for our babysitting money or craft making proceeds. Their dollars, like all of ours, are hard earned, and their quarters really remind me of the importance of fiscal responsibility. We're really lucky that we're able to partner with the Rotary Club, and we benefit immensely from volunteer effort through their club. And we also have some really great connections in our community. Just recently, we participated in the community golf tourney with the chamber. For our services, we provide about 3 to 4 days worth of food for those in need weekly. And we pride ourselves on really being aware and well connected with other services, our trusted resources in Hinton. So we're able to best refer for those in need. We understand that when life starts to spin out of control, and many are experiencing problems or hardships, the food bank is the first place that they'll come to. So we think it's very important that we're able to connect somebody with a service like HELP or COPAR for employment. They might not even have known that these supports existed. And advocating is also very important for us. This goes back to our vision where we see a future of not needing a food bank or services like ours. Pictured on the bottom here is an average hamper for a 3 to 4 family. So the hampers are provided based on household size. This is a good week, I would say. We've got all of the items pictured available. Most of them would have been donated sometimes. We don't have those items in stock, and that would be then a week that we wouldn't have that available for our clientele, unfortunately. Since we last met, we've been able to max out our orders from Food Banks Alberta. These are free. We get about 2 extra pallets a month, which is really making a difference. We're having some more flexibility and having to move things around and kind of crunch things to make room, but it's helping us to get more food out the door. We only have to pay for delivery through Grimshaw, but we've got a great deal thanks to something that Bernie arranged with them and their generosity. Sometimes we even receive hygiene products, as you can see, so we need to be able to distribute. Since we've last met, we now have Food Recovery Fridays as well. So this is every Friday from 5 to 5:30. Local grocery stores donate their produce, dairy, and other reclamation items. And I'm happy to say, as of last week, the Red Cross has agreed to partner on that to cover all of our costs. CN and Service have also contributed some costs for 2025, so that's covered. Our core values are honesty, dignity, and respect, and they really inspire us to do good work in our community. We serve with dignity, and we are so fortunate to have so many honorable and dedicated volunteers who donate their time, skills, and heart. They are incredibly respectful and kind in their service. And we are also so appreciative of our donors. We are honest and transparent about our demand and our impact, and they continue to support us to ensure that we're able to support those in need and work towards food security in Hinton. Some of the issues that we're currently seeing, again, year after year, the demand is increasing for our service. Cost of living keeps increasing, rents are high, groceries are high, and wages just haven't kept up. This means we've got lots of clients coming through our doors, lots of new clients every week. For us as an agency, we've had to go from $35,000 was our food budget, I believe, in 2021. And now we're at $110,000. Despite all of our efforts to have great connections in our community and keep costs as low as possible, food has just increased that much. Many of our supporters are struggling, and we anticipate donor support will plateau or decrease as a result. We are also dealing with challenges with staffing. We've had to hire some part-time staff to help cover just the increased this heavy load that we're carrying. We've got one volunteer of 25 years who will be retiring, another who's on the wait list for a knee replacement. And this is just to ensure that we're able to keep up. These are our most recent numbers. So this is from July, and you can see it compares with last year as well. And you can see the increase there. Demand does continue to increase most months. Some months in 2025 have plateaued or remained about the same or a little bit lower. We expect our 2025 numbers will be higher on average than 2024. We don't always know. There's a lot of factors at play. Thinking about what will happen with AISH in the fall, we anticipate we're going to continue to see higher numbers. We're seeing more folks experiencing homelessness, more addiction issues, more mental health crises. We have now diasporites who are living in Hinton and are needing our services. And we also have more newcomers than we ever have in years past. But no matter what the issue is for folks, we'll be there to support them by providing food assistance and connection to trusted resources and employment, housing, and mental health. We've even created a food resource guide, and we update it every year, as well as a mental health resource guide and a senior savings guide, just to try to help connect anyone in need with an opportunity to save money or get the help that they might benefit from. This is a quote from one of our clients. It gives me some food to help get through the week. If the food bank closed, it would be terrible. We wouldn't have enough food. We wouldn't get through the week. This is why we show up week after week. This is why these folks are here. We just want to ensure that those in need are able to get some food assistance. We're asking the town to contribute another $15,000 to our agency, which would cover half of our rent and our utilities. We do have an excellent deal on our rent. We've got a great space. It's a former Queen's Bakery, and we've renovated to exactly what we need. But unfortunately, it does come with a bit of a cost, and we would sure appreciate your partnership. We also would ask that you help to advocate for policies to help those we serve so they don't need our services. We think we've got a pretty good reputation in Hinton. We've got a lot of great connections in our community and we've done a great job and we'd like you to continue to be part of it. A lot of our neighboring municipalities have shown support. For example, Edson provides a space for their food bank. It's the old RCMP building. And they were temporarily sharing it, but now it will completely be all for the Edson Food Bank. If we could just have something like that, it would be really meaningful and it would really help us to ensure our sustainability as well. As far as waste reduction goes, food recovery brings or saves about 65,000 pounds of food from the landfill and it gets it to folks in need. Now that we're continually doing this food recovery on Fridays, in addition to the Tuesday pickups, we anticipate that will double. So we'd be looking at between 120 and 130,000 pounds of food that are saved from the local grocery stores and get to those who will eat it. A lot of times people are left with the choice of paying their rent or getting groceries. By providing them food assistance, it actually keeps people housed, which is really important. And it's less expensive in the long term to keep them housed than it is to try to find them housing after they've become homeless. It also helps to improve our physical health when we have access to good, healthy food and also our mental health too. The strain of worrying for a lot of our single parents about how they're going to feed their children is alleviated if they can come to food recovery and come to the food bank once a week. Overall, we know that our food bank provides so many incredible benefits that go beyond just food, really contributes to the better well-being of Hinton. Here are some quotes from some of our clients. This one is a newcomer. Food is expensive here. It takes up over 30% of my income. I am full-time at a local fast food place. The food hampers will help me for the next few months until I can get permanent residency. We actually have a lot of folks who are going through that PR process and depend on us. I'm gonna just cut short here to the last bit. Why support us? We think it's the humane thing to do. That's why we do what we do. And we would sure appreciate it if the town would continue to support us and keep this essential service in operation. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Council, what questions do you have? Councilor McGowan.
Thank you for the presentation. I guess my question is actually for administration, moving into the next budget year. Is it already planned to bring an operating business case forward on the food bank through to the budget, or do you need a direction of council to do so?
Through the chair to members of the council, I'll look to, Alicia.
So through to all of the committee, the process that we have in place and solidified this year is any groups who were included in the budget last year, plus others who have contacted us, will be coming before committee or council to make a presentation. And then those monies will automatically be included in the draft budget as it comes forward.
Great. So to our guests who are here today, that's great news. So it means as a default, we'll see that as part of our budget process moving forward this year. So thank you and thanks administration for that. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
Thank you, sir. I'm seeing no more questions. I do have one, for you, probably confirmation. People can donate money via Interact.
E-transfer, oh, absolutely, yeah,
Okay, good. And the next one is you still require volunteers, is that correct?
absolutely, yes,
Okay.
every Tuesday and every Friday.
And my last one is for gardeners out there who are, getting a lot of carrots and tomatoes or whatever. Can they bring their fresh?
Oh, absolutely, that fresh produce goes so fast when we put it out on the pick shelves. People want to eat fresh, right? But it's so expensive.
So that is 3 absolutelys. Thank you so much, Kate, for being here. Thank you very much for what you do. Your fan club, your support group.
They're the best.
I just applaud you and what you do for our community. It's very, very appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. Thank you. We gotta get to work now.
See you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you.
One of you sitting over here, did you leave some car keys? We got some car keys left over here.
Hey, Carol. Here.
Oh. You want me to talk? Want me to talk?
Oh, absolutely. Katie, somewhere down.
I saw you. I was like, I have no pictures, no.
As I cited, I was
So-
here for moral support for Katie as well.
We're gonna get back to this. Our next delegation is the Wild Mountain Music Festival. And we're gonna have Camille Nielsen and Harry Arneson
Yes.
present. And it's a 10-minute presentation. I'll have council ask your questions at the end of your presentation and take the full 10 minutes if you want. Thank you.
Thank you, council, mayor, administration, everybody else. Thank you very much for having us. I wish I would have included photos. I didn't realize that was part of it, so I apologize. Wild Mountain Music Society has been having our festival for over the last 18 years, just outside of Hinton, 15 kilometers in Entrance, Alberta. Our society is entirely operated by volunteers. We have 0 paid employees, and in 2025, we had over 200 volunteers contributing more than 2,000 hours, helping to make our festival of approximately 3,000 attendees for a 3-day weekend a success. Without taking into consideration all the in-kind contributions that numerous local businesses supply, including generators, fuel, water, sanitation, the town of Hinton also generously supplies the showmobile. The annual cost to operate our festival is approximately $350,000. Roughly 1/2 of the operating expenses for the festival are covered by ticket sales. The remainder of our operating budget is supplied by a variety of sources. Local businesses contribute approximately $60,000 through sponsorship, and the remainder is through different sources, such as grants from National Art Center, as well as funding from people like the town of Hinton. In 2025, the town of Hinton generously supported the Wild Mountain Music Festival with contributing $6,500 in funding. The town also supplies in-kind support by allowing us to use the showmobile, which helps with cost savings of approximately $1,200. The objective of Wild Mountain Music Society is to promote Canadian live arts within the town of Hinton and indeed the whole West Yellowhead. Our purpose is to enhance the social, educational, cultural, and community experiences for our members, for the town of Hinton, and the residents at large. Wild Mountain Music Festival has family-friendly on-site camping. It's accessible for volunteers, accessible volunteer opportunities for all, and is completely volunteer run with over 6,000 hours annually. We also provide a free shuttle service connecting Hinton's Valley and Hill District to get out to the festival. Father Gerard Redmond and Harry College High School both have a School of Rock program that graciously come out every year to perform at the festival on Saturdays. There's children's programming, performers and activities in the kids tent, as well as this year we partnered with HIV West Yellowhead that came out to do education on drug and safe sex. We have many different food and art vendors from all across Alberta. We have a fantastic scenic venue showcasing Canadian, primarily Albertan artists across the diverse genres. There's opportunities for all musicians, artisans, and creators to share their work. Every year, we try to bring out Pine Valley residents, our Hinton seniors, in a weather-protected tent to enjoy the festival. Direct support for Hinton businesses through lodging, dining, and retail. And the Wild Mountain Music Society also provides ticket donations to other local nonprofits such as Bridges and the Food Bank. This year, our 50-50 raffle supported the Friends of Crescent Valley with a new playground project, and all of our recycling and bottle deposits helped support the Hill Mountain Views Quebec 2025 trip. Although the festival grounds are 10 minutes from the town of Hinton, roughly 1/3 of our 3,000 attendees travel from outside the community and visit our town of Hinton, generating significant economic benefits for Hinton's hotels, restaurants, and businesses. For the 2026, we respectfully request that the town of Hinton continue its valued support by budgeting the in-kind donation of the showmobile again, as well as $6,825, which is a 5% increase from last year's contribution. I don't know if you have any more to add. I apologize, I'm just reading off of it, but.
No, well, I think that's about it, it's, yeah, I'm also part of the board of the Wild Mountain Music Society. I'm also on the board of the Vinton Food Bank, both of which are a passion for me. I think one is food for the belly, and the other is food for the soul. I think it's interesting that roughly 50% of our the cost of the festival comes from sources other than ticket sales. Ticket sales aren't, it's not particularly cheap even to attend the festival for those who do attend. But which is why seek support from other sources. And again, I mean, many within the community, many businesses see the value. We received over $60,000 last year in direct cash contributions from sponsors within the community. And then the rest of the money that we get by and large is contributed by different levels of government. The town of Hinton provides some financial assistance. The local county does as well, together with the province of Alberta and the federal government, all of which, of course, see the benefit to the society at large for the continued development of the arts community and just the experience of music and things of that nature. You know, I mean, it's which is one of those things that I believe helps to give meaning to the human experience.
We want to make it always have the ability for anybody to attend. So although the ticket prices, a lot of people may not be able to afford the ticket prices, there is that opportunity to volunteer. Volunteering 4 hours a day or 12 hours before the festival gets you your ticket for the weekend. So anybody can come. There's jobs for every ability, every age, anything. If somebody wants to come, we will make sure that we make it accessible for them to come. Because it is an outdoor festival, one thing that's always a worry is the weather. This year, looking at the forecast, last year looking at the forecast, it was +30 every single day. It was extremely hot. We had to shift gears a little bit, make sure we have extra water. So we're always moving. This year, looking at the forecast, it was rainy, which was fine. This year, it was a torrential downpour. I stood up at the front gates, and even in the torrential downpour, the amount of vehicles that still come in, can't wait to listen to the music, looking to enjoy an afternoon, kids swimming in full swimsuits in giant puddles everywhere. So it's like, it's now proven that the festival has a reputation. Everyone enjoys coming. It's a very family friendly event. Weather doesn't really matter. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor McGowan.
Thank you. First of all, for making this available to not only people in our community, but from anyone who wants to come in and attend. And it is a huge draw. It's awesome. My question again is for administration. Really, it's just to confirm a similar question from our last presenter. We will see then the same sort of carry forward into the budget process with a 5% requested increase as part of that request for this budget.
Absolutely, committee.
Great, so we're looking forward to seeing.
And I know that I've seen most of your faces out there. I hope if you haven't been out, then in next year or the year after, you're all able to come out and enjoy and. Yeah,
Councillor Hans?
Yeah, I'm just curious, you mentioned that there was federal funding, provincial funding, and funding from Yellowhead County. What numbers are you looking at? Like, what are they contributing?
Oh, do we have those?
I have the numbers, of course.
Yeah. Rob is a super volunteer, both for the Hinton Food Bank and also for the Wild Mountain Music Festival.
The National Arts Center out of Quebec was $15,000, first year they got involved.
Okay.
The AFA grant, which is for our hours and stuff like that we put in volunteers, was $40,740. Yellowhead County was $2,200. And you guys aren't under a grant, you're under my sponsorship program, so it's a little different, because we run it a little different. And just on a note with the sponsorship, the showmobile that we get, we basically exchange that for Canada Day, because those big tents you have, those are ours. We set them up. All your tables, those are ours. Your ashtrays and anything else Don, or whoever takes over needs, we'll bring it, we have it. That's an exchange,
we do, and we rent them out
all the
all
time.
year round. So if you're having a wedding or if you're having some other type of event or somebody is looking for tents or.
Well,
They are
and there's a variety of other, other initiatives that, we supply tents for as well.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily charge rent, in every instance, certainly for, again, if our mandate is to enhance to enhance the cultural experience with the community. We're actually this weekend, we're actually providing it to, it's not in Alberta, it's over in the Robson Valley Festival, we're supplying tents to them, that we supply the tents to them for no charge, because they are also more or less similar in their focus, and also the weekend following that, we will be supplying a number of tents to the Hinton Folk Festival. We have supplied to a variety of other non-profits, organizations to assist them with their ventures, and then we also supply them on a rental basis. The rent that we charge, I mean, it is certainly compared to any pricing that you can get for big top tents out of major centers like Edmonton. I mean, we're probably at half that price, and often we sharpen our pencils as well. We try to be helpful.
If I may, Madam Chair, just one more, let's follow up. So for those on Yellowhead County's counselors and mayor, I'd like to challenge them to match our donation for the next season, because I think, I mean, it benefits also the Yellowhead County area and everything as well, so yeah, just want to put that out there to them. So
Can I second that?
Yeah, preach it, brother.
Go get them.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So I'm not seeing any more questions from council. Camille, Harry, thank you for your presentation. Thank you so much for what you do in our community. And to you, sir, thank you.
No problem.
Next
I'm
year,
not-
we'll need a bunch of pictures too. Pictures, because some of our pictures are phenomenal, like the location is phenomenal, everything is, yeah.
Next year, we'll be asking for pictures.
Well, now that I know.
Katie sets a pretty high bar, but now we've seen what.
So I
Katie
said,
does.
I said to Julie, I'm like, what do you do? He's like, just show your pictures. I'm like, please give them pictures. Thank
very
you.
much for
Thank
your
you.
Thanks a lot.
Consideration.
Thank you. Okay, council, we're gonna move on to, enforcement administration. We'll start with, vehicle for hire bylaw 2024, and that's found on page 18 of your agenda. And I'll move this to administration.
You and this one will go to Ms. Wade.
Thank you, CAO. Actually, Ms. Leesmaster is going to present this one for us.
Thank you, Ms. Weiss. Through the chair to all of council, this report is before you today to examine the draft vehicle for hire bylaw. If passed, this bylaw would replace the taxi bylaw, which was passed in 2006. A vehicle for hire bylaw is not required by the MGA, but to support public safety, administration is recommending to continue regulating vehicles for hire. The draft vehicle for hire bylaw allows for 4 types of vehicles for hire. Taxis and limos, which are allowed under the current bylaw, and 2 new types, shuttles and rideshare, which the companies Uber and Lyft fall under. Each type is completely severable from the larger bylaw. Thank you, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, and I'll be the first one to start. So my concern is with Uber and Lyft. Would that interfere with our taxi company, who they run the taxi company to make a living? Would it interfere with our transit system, who we're watching how many people ride transit, we're watching how much money we make off transit? So, I'm anticipating, some concern. So
There has been some concern from taxi companies about allowing Uber and Lyft into the community. Under this new bylaw, a lot of the restrictions that were previously placed on taxi companies have been removed to make it easier for them to do business.
And would you be putting a limit on the number of Ubers or Lyft that could actually work in our community?
That is something that council could direct us to do.
Thank you. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Along the lines of the bylaws and rules and stuff. Ride shares, whatever you want to call it, Ubers, whatever, but do they fall under the same guidelines and bylaw as the taxi drivers would? And I preface this, there was some concern on a letter we received that there was some concern that they wouldn't need to follow and have the proper papers, licenses, things like that, that say a cab company would need. So is that something that this bylaw, it would be the same rules and guidelines?
Thank you, and through the chair to all of the committee. So the rideshare vehicles would still have to have all the same licenses as a taxi company. The main difference between in a rideshare vehicle and a taxi vehicle is that they wouldn't have the requirements of like specific colors on the exterior of the vehicle and some of the contact information on the exterior of the vehicle and in the interior is different. But Ubers and Lyft, part of this way that their system works means that they have a GPS in their vehicle, whereas taxis don't necessarily have that.
All right, thank you.
And, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, you're next.
Thank you, and Councilor Chambers after me there,
I'm sorry.
Councilor Chambers after me there, Madam Chair. Thank you, and through the chair to administration, so this discussion we're having on the TNCs, I believe it. Ubers or Lyft, I'm gonna call them TNCs potentially for now, under section 3 of this proposed draft bylaw. A vehicle for hire business license application. So if a company, if a TNC came in, would they have to follow all of section 3.1, 3.2, 3.3 plus section 3.4? So a TNC would have to provide a unique company name and color scheme, a list of drivers, etc. Or this is with what the answer we just got was, does the TNC not fall under section 3.3 of this bylaw and only have to follow under section 3.4?
Thank you, through the chair to all of committee. a TNC would be required to follow all of 3.3 and 3.4. 3.3 says that a TNC applying for a business license to provide ride sharing services must also provide, so in addition to 3.3.
Okay, so to be clear, under the way that this is written, a TNC would have to have unique company name and color scheme approved for the vehicles, even though the rideshare vehicles in many of these cases are personally owned by the drivers. Is that the case?
So, through the chair to all of committee, that refers to the TNC provided logo that they would place onto their vehicle while they are in operation,
Okay, but not the color scheme of the vehicles.
not the color scheme of the vehicles, that is correct.
And just to be clear, this is different than the handling of a registered taxi company in our community, which would be stuck with an approved color scheme and logo scheme.
Through the chair to all of committee, yes. The difference is made clear in section 4, which is the vehicle license application.
If I could just add
Yeah.
to Ms. Lee's master's notes on that, the main intention for cab companies or taxi companies to have an identifiable color scheme is because we are not requiring them to be GPSed. That's very expensive, can be cost prohibitive. So from an enforcement standpoint, we require something identifiable to be able to follow up with an individual should there be a complaint, or if, of course, there is some sort of RCMP investigation and the like, to be able to quickly identify that vehicle in an emergency.
Can't follow up. Shannon?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. And so on that GPS note, what's the difference between the TNC and the taxi?
Through the chair to committee, the difference is between the external colors. So a TNC only has to have the municipality provided logo and the TNC provided logo on their vehicle, while a taxi must have like the full colors and contact information.
Sorry, I meant to clarify the question. What's the difference between a TNC GPSing versus a taxi GPSing? Why is the cost of GPS prohibitive for a taxi? And it's not mentioned anywhere in the bylaw for a TNC.
Through the chair to committee, the difference is that it is required for the way that a TNC operates, because you look at an app and you can see where the vehicle is on the app. So it's required by the company policy for a TNC. A TNC requires that as a company.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I don't believe that we should be writing company policies into
No.
our bylaws, and I'm a little concerned about that.
For example, Uber requires their drivers to be GPS tracked as part of the app. So the TNC in this case is like an Uber, right? So we're not governing that. That's already required by Uber, Lyft. Whereas a taxi is not. They are not required to have an app. They could if they want. They could certainly make that transition. And they're not required to be GPS tracked.
So under this bylaw, if a taxi company were to require in their policy that they track their vehicles with GPS via an app, would they lose the requirement to have a particular color scheme, because then now they're operating the same as the theoretical Uber Lyft?
Through the chair to committee, no, that would still be required, just because they would fall under a taxi as long as they want to do like street hailing. If they really wanted to only do, to remove that requirement for their vehicles, they could incorporate as a TNC and be a rideshare vehicle instead.
Okay, thank you. I'm really this one for now. Thank you.
Councillor Chambers.
I kind of had some similar questions to Mayor Neeson, but I really also struggle with the fact that we're giving different rules and criteria for the TNCs and the taxis. I agree definitely to the point that you know, if a taxi service suddenly goes and installs an expensive GPS system, I don't know why we'd be mandating them to operate under different rules. I certainly for the vast majority and modernizing of this bylaw, it was fascinating to read actually, some of the stuff that was in there. But I really, I was happy to see, you know, the inclusion of the demerits and the criminal record check and all of those things. But the other, like, how are we going to control Uber's drivers and their criminal record checks and all of those things? Like, I think when you're starting to involve these other companies, I think it just gets really difficult, and I'm uncomfortable with us having maybe. I think if they want to be here, they need to step up to the plate in the same way that our taxi companies have. And I think whatever that is, but do we have, I don't know a lot about their business models, but you know, what are they providing us? I know there, some of it was in here talking about, you know, the list of their drivers, et cetera. Like, are they producing those criminal record checks to our bylaw on a regular basis? Or are we just saying, oh, Uber's got it, they've got the GPS, they've got all the stuff, and they know what our policies are, and we're going with that? Because I think a lot of it is the safety and security. A lot of our vulnerable sector individuals are the ones that are using our taxi service for the vast majority of the time. And I think it's a little bit going from such a prescriptive bylaw to, you know, reducing it to this level and then relying on the Ubers and Lyfts of the world to be honoring some of these points in the bylaw. I just wonder how, like, what reporting would they give to us, or what does that structure look like, or do we know that? That would be my questions. I just don't think they should get an easier time to operate in the town than our existing taxi companies should. I think it should be as even as possible.
Thank you for that question, Counselor, and through to the rest of committee this evening. I think the overall intention of the bylaw was to bring it up to date, of course, but to make the rules the same. So Uber, if I wanted to be an Uber driver, I would still have to come into the Protective Services office and provide all of the same documentation as a cab company, let's say. However, the main difference is that Uber already requires that GPS piece. They require that, we don't. Therefore, the town is choosing not to implement GPS requirements on, for example, a taxi company. The difference there is that we are going to request they are identifiable with their color. So that's the one piece of additional information that they would have to provide to the town through the application process. So all of their criminal record checks and the like, their number of demerits, all of that gets checked when they come in to seek approval for their application. So those processes are the same regardless of whether you're driving a taxi cab, an Uber type vehicle, a shuttle, or a limousine.
CEO.
Thank you to the chair and members of the committee. One of the big differences between those two technologies, and the reason that they're almost unilaterally governed different, is because there's a whole bunch of additional built-in safety mechanisms with those rideshare companies. Because when you order some kind of rideshare companies, it tells you exactly who your driver is, their name, they have it posted in their car, they have the exact make and model of the car that's picking you up, so it's easily identifiable to the customer. But these are independent contractors who are working for these rideshare companies, so the safety mechanisms are already built in to these technologies. When it comes to cabs, the reason that municipalities typically govern this way is because you don't have those safety mechanisms built in. When, you know, in theory, anybody could stop because you're now hailing cabs versus ordering it through an app with that, with the clarity of who's picking you up. You could stop, tell them you're a taxi in theory. So typically municipalities govern taxis and hailing services with those identifiable phone numbers on the outside. You know, the color scheme, so you know who's who. So typically that's why they're governed different.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Chambers, was your question answered?
Yeah, I think that's good. I still don't know exactly where I sit on it, but I understand the methodology.
Thank you. Counselor McEwen.
Thanks. Feel like there's a remarkable sense of deja vu from the last time we revisited the taxi bylaw and this topic with ride sharing came up. And I think around the same time, some of our bigger cities were also grappling with competition and some pretty strong feelings between taxi companies and ride sharing providers. So I guess from a really high level perspective, and then I'll drill into some other questions. Is there even a way, is it within the municipality's authority to even say, no, we will not permit ride sharing within the municipality of Hinton? Is that something that we have in our authority? And not saying that that's where I stand, I'm just trying to understand our toolbox when it comes to provincial legislation, et cetera, et cetera. Free market.
Yep, through the charter members of committee, yeah, absolutely, and some communities have banned it, especially early on in the early days of that technology. So, yeah.
Can I have a follow-up, Madam Chair, on this point? So just building off of that question, CAO, do we have an understanding on where some of our, call it approximate, sort of equivalent sized municipalities in the province stand with this? Like, are there some municipalities that we're aware of that have said, nope, already not today? Or are there some that have already said, yeah, best practice, we're putting it into place alongside taxis?
Through the chair to all of council, I am not aware of that.
So we did do some research but we were specifically looking on how communities are governing it. We didn't look so much at who's not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll jump back into queue, please, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Counselor Stasher.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm a little bit torn on this as well, although maybe not so much as some of the other counselors. I feel strongly that if this passes in the way that it is, which is council's prerogative, obviously, but I think it would be the end of the conventional taxi service in our community. Just Uber and Lyft are just structured in such a way that barriers to entry are so much lower that basically you need a class 5 license and a vehicle, and you can more or less be approved to be an Uber and a Lyft driver. In addition to that, you can go online and read any number of comments about how Uber and Lyft were to treat their contracted service providers, which is also something I don't want to see, but they can get away with it because there's an endless lineup of people who are willing to provide full-time or part-time rideshare services through Uber and Lyft. I don't like the business model. That's my personal opinion. But I do think that if this happened, we wouldn't have any conventional taxis in Hinton anymore. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Counselor Hawks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as I'm gathering, info here, if I wanted to be a TNC and I have to be then affiliated to Uber or Lyft or whatever. I can't, under this bylaw, I can't just start up my own Uber, Trevor Rides, or something like that and get a GPS and do all that, like I would have to be affiliated to that, correct?
Through the chair to all of committee, so TMCs are regulated provincially,
Okay.
so in theory could do that. You would just have to also register with the province as a TNC.
Okay, so there is though a process I would have to be vetted through that with the licenses and all that, okay. Yeah, I've, like everyone else, a little torn on this one, but I just don't see our community large enough for the Uber or the TNC in our community. I realize people are trying to do, diversify incomes and try to different opportunities and things like that, but I do think that it does come at a cost. And it would potentially, eliminate our normal taxi service that have been part of our community for so long. And I just do, and sometimes those systems are so large, they're not always great for a community, so. At this point in time, I think I'll hear the rest of committee on this one, but that's where I'm kind of feeling the same way, so, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I assume the answer is yes, but I think it's important to ask because there's a lot of changes potentially. If it was the will of council to adopt something like this, administration feels all the details are enforceable from administration's perspective, because there's a lot there.
That is correct. We did do stakeholder feedback prior to this with protective services.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McGowan and Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, and through the chair to committee, I suppose. Heard a lot of comments from administration, from committee members. And when I look at this draft bylaw, I really have to ask myself, what are we trying to do with this draft bylaw? And I understand we have to replace our existing bylaw. It's so far out of date, half of it doesn't make any sense. The technologies have changed, all of those things are true. But, to Councillor Ostashik's point, to CEO Panasic's point, there's a couple of reasons why municipalities like ours regulate vehicles for hire and taxis and whatnot. And one of that is public safety. And the other is to maintain a viable industry in the community. Because the thing about transportation services is it's always possible for somebody to come in and undercut commercial operators by taking advantage of non-commercial systems within the interaction. So non-commercial leases, non-commercial insurance rates, not having a commercial driver's license, not registering with the city, not getting a business license. All of those kinds of things give advantage to, in this case, many cases, the illegal operators over our regulated and licensed businesses. And so we have to find a balance between regulating our businesses to provide that public safety component and also regulating them so that we have a sustainable industry. Because I agree with Councillor Stashik, if we pass this as it is written today, I believe that would be the end of our taxi services in Hinton. But not because Uber and Lyft can outcompete our taxi services naturally. But with this bylaw as it is, our taxi companies have several additional requirements placed upon them that an Uber driver simply doesn't. And that has cost. So when I look at this and I see a vehicle for hire business license application, and I see a business needs to have a unique name, color scheme to be approved, but an Uber driver or a TNC driver doesn't. Well, I think about our poor taxi company in town here that bought cabs 20 years ago when yellow taxis were the #1 thing and they came off the line yellow. Today, car companies don't even make yellow vehicles. So his cost, that company's cost to just maintain their color scheme is higher than any other company that can just buy a vehicle in the color scheme that is their color scheme now. Now we're gonna go say an Uber driver can come in with any vehicle at all and off the races we go. So, well, there's an additional cost on our drivers. In the vehicle licensing application, we have to have proof of ownership. So rented vehicles are right out the window. We're a surge community. We're a community that goes through seasons. In the fall, the early spring, there's almost nobody here, nothing going on, no rides. In the summer, it's nuts. We need transportation companies in our community that can scale with demand seasonally. And having a requirement to own the vehicle, I think, ignores modern business practices that allow for short-term rentals and leases for transportation companies all over the province. So I'd really like to see this come back. I don't want to see this go to council today. But I would like to see it come back evened out a little bit more. So if we do still have the ability for TNCs to come in, I'd like to see the rules be exactly the same. So I'm thinking a minimum. Every driver driving a vehicle for hire should have a minimum class 4 license or higher if appropriate for the vehicle. Vehicles get bigger. Every vehicle used should be commercially registered. And I think that is listed off here in the livery registration certificate. That is a commercial vehicle registration. And every vehicle that's used should have valid commercial insurance. And we should be able to verify that. And we saw the letter from one of our taxi operators. Those commercial insurance rates are quite prohibitive. And it is the insurance companies that more than anyone govern who drives what in commercial vehicles around this province. if we have those three mandatory requirements and they're the same for everybody. Then we're looking at a more balanced bylaw. The criminal record checks, I think, great idea, but I am concerned when I look at section 3.3D. And I look at a vulnerable sector criminal record check from the owner and all partners dated within a period of 90 days, yada, yada, yada. I look at that and I think, wow, any locally owned company has to provide criminal record checks for potentially all of their ownership structure, and Uber, Lyft, they don't have to provide anything. We're putting our own local businesses potentially with this on very uneven footing. The time it takes, the cost, I'd really like to see, if we're gonna allow TNCs, I'd like to see them be on the exact same footing as our cab companies, if we can, especially in terms of the operating costs and complexity. Now, going further and considering this bylaw, I also wanna think about what are the vehicle and transportation requirements of our community, because they are changing. This was very apparent after the Jasper fires last year, with the number of vehicles in Jasper that were lost, that were used vehicles that were affordable when they were purchased. And the repurchase of said vehicles today is not possible anywhere near the same cost. We're seeing more and more people moving to our community today that don't have primary transportation. I really do believe that our town, because of the way we're laid out, is a difficult town to service from a transportation standpoint. We have a Hinton Transit, but it does not meet the needs of our workforce. And I know from having discussions in the community that there are people that are turning down work shifts in our community because they don't have an ability to get from home to work in a way that is affordable for them. And I would really like to see a vehicle for hire bylaw that allows for a broader diversity of transportation types. And I think about the people that in cohorts go into the hotels and our fast food restaurants every day at the same time. These people need a mechanism whereby they can book some sort of transportation in advance to get into work every day in the week. And quite frankly, our service workers aren't going to be able to pay metered taxi rates. When we think about vehicle for hire services, there's two kinds of rates in my mind. Metered rates are for when the customer is unknown, the driver is unknown. It's the most dangerous situation that we can probably have in our community, other than traffic stops for police officers. But when you have a community like ours and you have riders that are known, they take the same transportation every day with the same driver and the same vehicle, all of those safety concerns disappear. I also know anecdotally that we have a couple of people in town that have private vehicles, personal vehicles, that drive around a regular group of cohort to work every day in a vehicle for hire situation that's completely unlicensed and unregulated, because that sort of thing falls well outside the bounds of our current bylaw. But if we take away the ability of members in our community to get together and share a vehicle or work together to get themselves to and from work, get themselves groceries, we're just going to be hobbling members of our community. The demand exists in this community for more transportation options. Our existing bylaw is very restrictive. This draft, I think, unfairly would weight the advantage in private equity firm, digital service companies that aren't located in our community, and it would kill our local business, and that would take dollars right out of our community. And potentially lead to a situation where if it's not viable to have, a dozen TNC drivers in town working off a map, we might lose our industry altogether. So I'd like to see some more balance come into a draft of this when it comes back to council. I've said a lot of words and let council.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Councilor Voss.
Yeah, I don't know if this will capture what the mayor is saying. I think one of the things that I've learned over the years is bylaws are tricky when it comes to enforcement, and when we complicate things, it becomes an enforcement problem. And then we have, people outside of the bylaw. So I think, for a lot of the reasons that have been said here, that I'd like to move that committee. I'd like to take option 3, but I wanna add, the committee refer the vehicle for hire bylaw number 1024 to a future committee of the whole meeting, eliminating the TNC ride share part of the bylaw for further discussion. And I'm sure that needs to be reworded in some way, but Guess it's called ride share, sorry, my apologies. Different terms thrown around there, so, yeah, to eliminate the ride share option. And. Yes.
Thank you through the chair. Just a response on a couple of the points there is, ride shares do have commercial insurance that's carried by the platform. That covers all of the drivers. When it comes to colors, because the whole premise of the ride share technology is that individuals drive their own vehicles. But they're not insured and they're not registered, or they're not allowed to use, say if they have two vehicles at home, they can't just swap vehicles and drive whatever vehicle, they have to register a vehicle. So if we're talking about colors, they could register a color when they go and sign up for the bylaw, but it would just be the color of their car, right? Because the premise of utilizing colors to match the companies is because it's just a different business model where one person or, you know, a company owns multiple cars, where ride shares are just, you're a driver, you have a personal car, and you want to go and deliver service on your schedule type of thing. So you could include color schemes, but it's only one vehicle, and you know, whatever color your vehicle is the one you'll put down as your theme, but.
Thank you, sir. And Councillor Hauser, you good with?
I gotta see it, so. Yeah, and if I can quickly speak to it. I got a number of concerns. One is our transit system, and I mean, we've looked at different options for our transit system, and I mean, you know, if it's not fitting the needs of our community, then maybe that's a conversation we also have to have. Cause I also do see the potential for, you know, a service that we provide in our community being affected also by this bylaw having rideshare options. You know, I just think, again, as our community is at the size it is, I just don't see it necessary, you know, for a rideshare option in our community. You know, and to also protect, again, those taxi services that have been with us in our community for such a long time. So I just think it's best we eliminate it. I know communities might not have done that, but we have the right to do that. So, yeah, we'll see what the rest of the community thinks, but that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. My question is for administration, given the wording of this. How would the execution of this motion actually work or look? What would that look like in the bylaw?
CAO.
The chair, actually, my question was going to be just for a little bit of clarification, because it can be read two ways. I think I know the intent, and I think the intent is to ban these technologies from operating in town. But eliminating it just, you know, because we may look at this in months later and forget the context, but eliminating could also mean eliminating it from the bylaw, which essentially means that it's unregulated.
Okay,
So
my
I
intent
would
is,
just ask for a clarification to make sure that it's clear.
so my intent is to ban that from it.
Yeah.
So what wording can you provide?
Committee of the whole banning the operation of rideshare options in the bylaw or finish your discussion, something along those lines.
And thank you for that clarification, Mr. Mayor. I realize, yeah, just not taking it out of the bylaw doesn't mean it actually stops people from doing it. So if I may clarify, Madam Chair, then this would mean that the bylaw would change to indicate if there are ride shares or this is not something that we condone in our community or expand, and it would be in whatever enforcement or whatever. Okay, perfect. Yes, that's my intent. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So council, we do have a direction. And Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you through the chair to administration. With this, what is the mechanism by which we would likely ban operations of a TNC rideshare? And would that likely limit the ability of, say, a taxi company from using a digital platform to hail and dispatch?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through to committee. Those are some of the components that we will have to reconsider with our enforcement staff. For example, in the current iteration as it's written today, because we eliminated the need for taxi companies, let's say, to have certain dispatch hours, right? So these are all the things that we'll have to reconsider now that we wouldn't have rideshare in there as an option within the community. So we'll take a look at all of them. We have to look at the whole thing.
Yeah.
If there's someone else like you, yeah.
No.
I'd like to go again then. All right, well, through the chair to committee, I'm not gonna be in support of this motion as it is written there. What I actually am interested in seeing is this draft bylaw coming back to a future committee of the whole. But I would like to see the options where the TNC vehicle driver and the taxi company vehicle driver, the whole thing is administratively even. I'm not convinced that we'll be successful in actually banning the operations of TNCs. That it's based on technology, those regulations are written a little bit weird. And I think that the modern consumer is starting to expect digital dispatching options. It just is. I talk to people my age, nobody wants to pick up a phone and make a phone call. They want to do it all in an app digitally. They want to know the price out in advance. They want to know those things. I'm concerned that the way that these kinds of operations have been banned in the past is by banning the use of the digital tools. I don't think that that's future proofing for our community. But at the same time, I really do think that a big part of maintaining a sustainable industry in our community is maintaining that even playing field. And I think in a lot of places, our taxi companies right now, they've got a lot of rules to follow. They've got a lot of expenses because of that. And it is very unfair to them to allow newcomers to come in and not have to go through any of those hoops or jump through any of those rules. But if we can get a draft bylaw that makes the rules, so local taxi company can hire a driver, same way that Uber can have a driver. The driver goes through the same steps and process. The company has to go through the same steps and process. I am concerned about letting in a TNC and not having that company go through all the hoops that a local company would have to just to get a business license. That takes time, it has cost, those kinds of things. And I will leave it at that, Madam Chair. Thank you.
And administration.
Thank you. Just to provide clarity on that for committee, so that we did recognize that the metered system is not easy to adhere to these days, right? So we did discuss whether the option would exist for your traditional cab company to use an online platform. Under the current bylaw, as Ms. Leesmaster explained earlier, that would require them to kind of transition over to the more rideshare. However, to my answer earlier was to suggest that we will go back and look at how we may be able to allow cab companies, given this motion, right, that would allow the cab company to switch to the app model if they so choose.
Go ahead, sir.
Me?
Yes, sir.
I guess my question, I don't disagree at all with the mayor. I guess my question is, how likely is it that there are certain criteria that if you wanted to be an Uber driver that you have to fit, that doesn't require the things a taxi does? So we add on added extra measures that are required. Is that even possible for us, I guess, to do when you've already established you're with the company and now the community you're working in has added extra levels that you have to abide by, that the company you're working for doesn't? So just the logistics of that, can you comment on, is that feasible?
You asking as related to the rideshare?
Yeah, so what I'm hearing the mayor say is we wanna make that, it's an even playing field. But right now, if you got a GPS in your vehicle and you work for Uber, you're good to go. You don't need to go through anything really else. You don't need to, like the licenses and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just wondering, are we adding extra that we can add to that?
Through the chair, members of the committee, we are adding additional regulatory steps for rideshare, by regulating it. But this is actually the exact same business model as Airbnb and short-term rentals, right? There's really no difference in the, a local municipality has the ability to add in the regulations for those technologies as they see fit. So, yeah, we can absolutely do what we would like with it. The other thing that council may want to consider is the differentiation of fees. But I don't see a lot of differences in the requirements because it's mostly the requirements are for the vehicle for hires, right? So there's not a lot of difference in at least the municipal steps that are required. But certainly the one thing that we could do is look at fees as maybe a factor that balances competition, if that's council's concern.
I may follow up then.
Certainly, sir.
I think still hearing from administration that they are going to look at, be able to dig into, can we allow them with this motion as it's, or this direction as stands, that we can still have the digital for cabs and everything. I think, I'm comfortable with that. And I appreciate the analogy between Airbnbs. We get a lot about Airbnbs, and this is quite similar. It could take over. And I think this is an opportunity to, manage and take control of that before it does cause any issues or problems in our transportation into our companies that are currently here. So I'm comfortable. I'm gonna continue to support this, knowing that there will be some options brought to us and when it comes back to us. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Mayor.
In the discussion that we just had, there was mention of rates and the lack of the meters in the new taxing, that sort of evening the playing field out, and it brought up a point, and maybe it's not for this motion, but something to bring up in the future. But under our I guess enforcement side of things, we list off that, it's the rider's responsibility to pay the full rate for the ride. And in our current taxi system with meters, it's very obvious what the full rate for the ride is. We've never regulated what the rates are. The taxis, as I understand it today, set their own metered rates, but the meters are inspected and tested. And when you get in a cab, you set your rate, where the meter is on, what you're gonna end up paying. I'm a little bit concerned in this bylaw that outside of the TNCs, which, as we talked about, use technology to pre-book the rides, they give you a price up front, generally speaking. In our taxis as today, what is the protection for that taxi driver in a potential dispute on fare, where we're no longer regulating the use of meters and we don't regulate the fares? So how are we to determine what a fair rate is in a dispute situation? But that might be a question for after this motion. Thank you.
Through the chair to the rest of the committee, under this bylaw, we did not. There would be no involvement with the municipality in terms of fares or rates or any sort of payment.
So again, when I talk about fairness between taxis and TNCs potentially, and whether we remove it or not here is irrelevant to me. The protections for the drivers. So once again, this bylaw is now protecting TNC drivers. They know what the rate is up front. TNC is collecting it. We've actually, I think in the draft, taken away some protections for our taxi operators, where now that taxi operator in the middle of the night picked up a person who was maybe a little bit inebriated at one of the hotels or at one of the bars, gets to the hotel, and there's a disputable payment. No more meters. What is that payment? How are we going to resolve that dispute? And of course, the taxi operators, because they're not part of a TNC, they didn't get paid in advance, there's no company there to offer them, so. Just one of the examples again of there's big unevenness between the risks now that your Uber driver, your TNC driver is taking versus your taxi driver. I'd like to see those evened out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, I just have to say, my concern is we have a taxi company in town who's been here a very, very long time. I don't want their income to suffer because we're gonna be bringing in Uber or Lyft. Another thing is transit. That's been a big thing for us. I remember when transit first started in Hinton, and we were so happy about it. I don't want transit to suffer a hit on this. The longer we talk at this table about this, I have more questions. So I'm not gonna support this motion because I do think there's more information to come our way. Thank you. So council, we do have Councillor Hunt or Brian.
Yeah, I'm gonna support the direct on the floor, I think. Going back, sort of personal experience going back several years, you know, my family and I, we were in Orlando. And you know, we took Uber to a couple places because you knew the price up front and it was like, oh, that's a great deal, we'll take it, gets us to where we need to go. And then when we got there, we sort of felt like it was a bit of a trap because the surge pricing kicks in, which is part of their business model. And then, you know, your price to get back to where you originated from nearly tripled. You know, so for what was like a $20 fare, because it was busy, all of a sudden became an $80 fare to get back. And that was sort of one of those aha moments. And in a big city like Orlando, you're protected because from economies of scale, you can still have taxi companies running. They still have a big enough share of the profit in the business that they can still operate, even though there's a number of different Uber operators running. So, you know, it's okay. You can call a taxi and that's your best bet at that point in time. We don't have the benefit of protection for our taxi operators where they're guaranteed to be able to operate their business if there's this influx of individual operators under Lyft or Uber sort of eating away at their profits, and that concerns me. Because then, for those people who say are on shift and they're all looking to catch a ride at 8 o'clock in the morning or 7:30 in the morning to go reach the ride, well, maybe surge pricing kicks in, and it starts hurting their ability to be able to afford to get to work. That's not guaranteed through the Lyft and Ubers of the world. Is it guaranteed to drive, you know, our, you know, taxi business or our taxi business out of business? Not necessarily, but enough that I'm concerned that it might be a possibility. And right now I'm worried about people in town being able to afford to eat. You know, we just had a presentation about the fiscal realities people are facing. Never mind now trying to be able to afford to get to work. For myself, this is a bit of the status quo. I feel like the safest bet is to protect what we have in town. I haven't had a lot of people knocking on my door saying, geez, why are you not letting ride shares in? The last time we discussed this as a committee, I had a whole bunch of people knocking on my door and my phone saying, why are you potentially threatening our taxi cab companies? And so that's for myself where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much. Anything else from council before we call the question? Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd actually like to propose an amendment to the direction on the floor. I'd like to propose that we amend the statement to read the committee refer the vehicle for hire bylaw number 2024 to a future committee of the whole meeting with options for banning the operations of the TNC ride share option of the bylaw for further discussion. I believe, so just with options. I believe that banning TNC in this bylaw will need to be explicit. And that there's likely more than one way of council achieving that goal. And the way we do it will make a difference and matter in the long run. And so I'd like to discuss the options at a future committee with all of you. rather than deciding now that that's the direction we want to go to for sure. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, so council, we do have an amendment to this direction. And I'm just thinking, how do I read that, or how do I address the amendment to this?
If I may suggest, you can read the proposed amended motion in full.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that suggestion. See you.
Sorry, Chair, just for my own clarity. What options would we be looking at? Because it's either we ban it or not, at least in my mind. It's similar to, again, going back to the short-term rentals analogy. If, you know, within the bylaw, we say there are no short-term rentals. We're banning it. I just don't know of different ways of banning it. I've looked at staff, but I'm not quite sure what we would.
Jordan, my interpretation of that would be to bring options to highlight for councillor committee what the implications would be if we did ban it. So you could ban it with these restrictions around cabs, or you could ban it, you know, and this is what the implications would be to riders who enter a shuttle or a limousine. So there's other elements that need to be considered when you're removing the TNC. Is my interpretation.
Are you good? See you.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, you're next.
Thank you. And to that, when I think of options for banning it, I think we could write in our bylaw, there are no TNCs that will be licensed in the municipality. But given that that TNC regulation is a provincial transportation regulation and is currently being reviewed, I don't believe that would be a very robust long-term bylaw for us. And I can think of a number of other ways through, you know, the licensing of drivers, for instance, or licensing of vehicles by which we could also effectively ban TNCs without referring to a provincial regulation that's potentially up for amendment.
And Councillor McGowan.
Well, and the other reason I think I like the amendment too, and speaking to what Ms. Wade has mentioned, is if council finds ourselves sort of down the road where we look at those implications and we're like, oh geez, we didn't consider that. Maybe we don't want to go down the full removal side of things, we still then have the option of saying, well, you know, the mayor had brought up this notion of what is full equality between both models, so like maybe we'll want to flesh that out a little bit more, and nothing's off the table. I think that's kind of why I would support that.
Good. I didn't want to rush this through. There's still more discussion on this, so I will take a crack at reading this with the amendment. That committee refer the vehicle for hire bylaw number 2024 to a future committee of the whole meeting. And here's the amendment with options of banning the operations of the TNC rideshare option of the bylaw for future discussion. I'll have to put it up. Get it on our screens.
I apologize, Jim, my computer sounds like a Sheen helicopter, so I'm just.
Okay, council, is it on everybody's screen? Except Councilor McGowan's. If we could vote now, please. And that is 5-4 and 1 against the trigger laws. Voting against this amendment. Okay, and now we'll move to the full direction. Before I read this direction. Nothing. The committee refer the vehicle for hire bylaw number 2024 to a future committee of the whole meeting with options of banning the operations of the TNC rideshare option of the bylaw for future discussion. Please vote no, council. That is your, thank you very much, everybody. Is there any more questions on this, action item? This, nothing? Okay, we're going to move to the next report from administration, and that is the plebiscite question review. It's on page 44 of our agenda, and I believe Ms. Barbeau will be presenting. I'm sorry.
Point of privilege.
Yes, sir. I will take a 7-minute break. Nice.
Yeah.